The smiling man at pump 6. Have you ever seen someone smile at you through a window and realized they weren't supposed to be there? That happened to me last week on the night shift, and I still don't know if I let something in or if it was already waiting for me. Before I go further, if you love true Reddit horror stories, night shift terror, and gas station nightmares, make sure to subscribe to Halfway Dark right now. Trust me, you're going to want the lights off for this one. It was 2:13 in the morning. The graveyard lull, the hum of the coolers, and the buzz of the fluorescent lights were the only sounds keeping me awake. That's when I noticed the pumps. Pump 6 kept clicking on and off, like someone was lifting the handle and setting it back, over and over. But there wasn't a car there. I stepped to the window, rubbed my eyes, and that's when I saw him. A man in a pale hoodie, standing perfectly still by the pump. His hood was up, his hands at his sides. But what got me was the grin, a wide, toothy smile. His face pressed almost too close to the glass, and yet when I blinked, he wasn't there anymore. What would you do if you saw someone smiling at you through the gas station window and they vanished the second you blinked? The knock, I told myself, it was a trick of the light. Sleep deprivation, anything but what it felt like. But then came the knock. Tap, tap, tap. From the back hallway door, the one that leads to the stockroom. I froze. That door stays locked at all times. Employees don't even use it. But the knocking kept going, steady, rhythmic, patient. I should have checked the cameras. Instead, like an idiot, I walked back there. When I opened the hall door, nothing. Just the dim bulb flickering. But the cooler fan kicked on, rattling loud, and in that split second, I swear I saw movement in the glass of the soda fridge. A reflection, smiling back. Not mine. Would you have checked the door or locked yourself in the booth until sunrise? The customer by 3 in the morning. I'd convinced myself I was losing it. Until the bell rang. The front door chimed, and in walked a customer. A trucker, older guy, smelling of diesel. He bought coffee, 2 packs of smokes, nothing unusual. But before he left, he leaned in, eyes heavy, like he hadn't slept in days. "You seen him yet?" he asked. I blinked. "Seen who?" The trucker didn't answer. He just gave this half smile, not wide like the figure outside, but knowing. And then he left. My skin crawled. I checked pump 6 again. Still empty. Escalation 1. The tape around 3:40. I decided to review the security feeds. I pulled up the last hour. At first, nothing. Empty pumps, empty aisles. And then there he was, the smiling man. But here's the part that broke my brain. On camera, he was inside the store, standing directly behind me while I restocked shelves. His grin stretched impossibly wide, teeth catching the fluorescent light. But I swear to you, I never saw him. If you saw footage of someone standing behind you, smiling, but you never felt them there, would you finish your shift? Escalation 2. The visitor 4:15. The door chimed again. I looked up, praying it was another customer, but it was him, the smiling man. Only this time, he walked in. He didn't speak, didn't move normally. It was like he glided, his steps slightly too slow for his body. His hoodie hung loose, but his grin cut through the shadows. I fumbled for words, for courage. "Store's closed," I muttered, even though it wasn't. He tilted his head. His smile never wavered. And then he raised his hand and pointed to the cooler. I shook my head. No. But he just pointed again. I don't remember moving. But somehow, I ended up in front of the cooler door, hand trembling on the handle. The glass fogged as if someone was breathing inside. I pulled it open. And there, stacked neatly among the soda cans, were photographs. Dozens of them. All of me, sitting at the counter, stocking shelves, even asleep in the break room. Every single one had the same figure in the background, a smiling man. Would you run out of the store or stay locked in until daylight? The disappearance, I spun around to confront him, but he was gone. The cooler door swung shut behind me, clicking with finality. The photos slipped from my shaking hands, and then the lights went out. Total darkness, only the hum of the cooler, and his breathing. Long, slow, deliberate breaths right behind me. I bolted, slammed myself back into the front counter booth, locked the door, and huddled down until the emergency lights flickered back. When they did, the store was empty again, but Pump 6 was running, gas spilling onto the concrete, pooling black under the flicker of the overhead lamp. By morning, the mess was gone. The photos? Nowhere to be found. The tapes? Blank static. My manager says I imagined it. The cameras glitched. But last night, driving home, I stopped at a red light, looked in my rearview mirror, and there he was, sitting in my back seat, smiling. So tell me, what do you think the smiling man is? A ghost, a demon, or something worse? And more importantly, what if he's already standing behind you? You've just listened to one of the darkest night shift horror stories from Halfway Dark. If you want more gas station nightmares, true Reddit horror, and chilling urban legends, hit that subscribe button and join us in the dark, because the night is long, and some stories never end. The last train carriage. What would you do if you boarded the last train of the night and realized you weren't alone, even though the carriage was empty? That's exactly what happened to me on my night shift commute. And I swear, something followed me home. Before we start, if you love true Reddit horror stories, night shift horror, and urban legends that feel too real, subscribe to Halfway Dark. You're going to want to keep the lights off for this one. I was working a double shift and barely caught the last train home. The station was deserted, just me, the hum of the fluorescent lights, and the echo of my own footsteps. When I stepped into the final carriage, it was completely empty. Perfect, I thought. I sat down near the middle, leaned against the window, and closed my eyes. That's when I heard it. Tap, tap, like knuckles dragging across the glass. I opened my eyes. The window beside me was fogged, though the air was freezing. And in that fog, someone had drawn a smile. But there was no one there. What would you do if you saw a smile appear in the condensation, but you were the only one in the carriage? The conductor, a few stops later, the doors opened with a hiss, and the conductor stepped inside. He was tall, rail-thin, his cap pulled low. His uniform looked old, like it belonged to another decade. He didn't say a word, just strolled down the aisle, dragging his hand across the backs of the seats. When he reached me, he stopped. His face stayed in shadow, but I could see his grin. Wide, too wide. Ticket? He asked, voice hollow, like the word had traveled too far to reach me. My hands shook as I pulled my pass from my bag. He took it, stared for too long, then slipped it into his pocket instead of handing it back. And then he walked away. But I never saw him leave the carriage. The woman at the next station, the lights flickered, and when they steadied, a woman was sitting 3 rows ahead of me. I swear she hadn't been there before. She wore a pale dress, hair long and stringy, head tilted at a strange angle. She never looked directly at me, just stared at the seat across from her, rocking slightly and humming. It wasn't a tune I recognized, but it was sharp, dissonant, like a nursery rhyme twisted out of shape. When the train lurched into motion, she snapped her head toward me, so fast I heard the crack of her neck. Her smile was identical to the conductor's. Would you get off the train right then, even if it meant walking miles in the dark? I couldn't take it anymore. I got up, headed toward the front of the carriage, anything to put distance between me and that smile. That's when I saw the mirrors. Every window I passed didn't show my reflection. They showed me sitting exactly where I had been, slumped half asleep, the woman humming across from me. And standing behind me in each reflection, the conductor. Grinning, I spun around. The carriage was empty. But when I looked back, every single reflection was still watching me. At 3:17 in the morning, the train screeched to a halt. But it wasn't my station. The PA system crackled to life, but instead of an announcement, I heard whispering. Thousands of voices layered together, all repeating the same phrase. Stay seated. The doors hissed open anyway. Beyond them, there was no platform, no station. Just endless darkness stretching out into nothing. And in that dark, dozens of pale faces stared back, all smiling. The woman stood. The conductor appeared behind her. And in unison, they turned to me. End of the line, they whispered. Would you step into the dark or stay trapped inside that carriage with them? I bolted. I don't even remember how I got out or when the train started moving again. The next thing I knew, I was stumbling into my actual stop, lungs burning, heart hammering. But when I reached into my pocket for my ticket, it wasn't there. Instead, folded neatly, was a torn scrap of paper. On it was a drawing, a smile. And this morning, when I looked in the mirror before work, there was fog on the glass, and someone had already drawn another. So tell me, what do you think the last train really is? A ghostly carriage, a doorway, or something worse? And more importantly, what happens if I have to ride it again tonight? You've just experienced another chilling night shift horror story from Halfway Dark. If you crave more urban legends, Reddit horror, and terrifying encounters with the unknown, subscribe now and join the community. Because in the dark, the story never ends. The bus stop that shouldn't exist. A night shift. Horror story. Halfway Dark. What would you do if the bus stop you've waited at 100 times suddenly wasn't supposed to be there? That's what I discovered during my night shift commute. And to this day, I'm not sure if I ever really made it home. Before we begin, if you love Reddit horror stories, night shift encounters, and urban legends brought to life, make sure to subscribe to Halfway Dark. The scariest part? The next story could happen to you. It was nearly 3 in the morning. I just clocked out, exhausted, waiting for the city bus. The street was empty, quiet, except for buzzing streetlights. That's when I noticed an unfamiliar bus shelter, a block down. Sleek, new, glowing under the lamp. But I knew this street. I'd worked here for years. That shelter had never been there. As I walked closer, I saw the route number, 12 Nightline. Only problem? Route 12 hadn't run in this city for almost 10 years. Would you wait at that stop or keep walking to the one you knew was real? If you're hooked already and love unexplainable horror, true night shift creepypasta, and urban legends, subscribe to Halfway Dark. The darkness never sleeps, and neither do we. I sat on the bench. Cold metal. Too cold. Then I noticed the posters on the backboard faded movie ads from the 90s, peeling. A bus pulled up. Silent. No engine noise. Inside, people sat completely still. No blinking. No movement. All staring forward. The driver leaned out, his face shadowed beneath a cap. He whispered, "You're late. Get in." Would you board that bus or wait alone in the dark? Against all instincts, I stepped inside. The air was heavy, musty, like damp soil. The passengers didn't acknowledge me, except one. A man in a suit slowly turned his head. His face looked melted, like wax sliding off bone. The bus began to move, but the windows didn't show the city. They showed fields, empty highways, places that shouldn't exist. The driver muttered over and over, "No stops. No stops. No stops." Would you scream for him to stop or stay silent and see where it goes? After what felt like hours, the bus slowed. The stop sign outside read, "Elm and 3rd, my street, my stop." but the houses looked rotting, abandoned, with lights flickering inside. I stepped off. The bus doors closed behind me. When I turned back, the bus was gone. Just gone. The air was thick. The street was silent. And in every window of every house, someone stood watching. Would you knock on a door or run as fast as you could? I ran, block after block. But the streets never ended. Every turn led back to Elm and 3rd. Finally, I saw my own house, my own porch light. Relief flooded me until I noticed the silhouette in the upstairs window. It was me, and it was smiling. I don't remember what happened next. All I know is, the next morning, I woke up in my bed like nothing had happened. But when I left for work that night, there it was again, the bus stop that shouldn't exist. And this time, the driver was already waiting for me. Would you sit down at that stop, or never set foot on that street again? You've just experienced another night shift horror story from Halfway Dark, where urban legends, strange encounters, and Reddit horror come alive. If this story made your heart race, hit subscribe right now, because the scariest stories, they don't end. They just wait for you at the next stop. The last level, a night shift horror story, Halfway Dark. Have you ever parked your car in a nearly empty garage, only to realize someone or something has been following you every level up? That's exactly what happened to me one night during my night shift commute. Before we start, if you love true Reddit horror stories, urban legends, and night shift terror, subscribe to Halfway Dark. The darkness doesn't wait, and neither do we. I drove into the parking garage just after 2 in the morning. The lot was nearly empty, silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. I parked on level 3, near the far corner. Then I noticed movement in the reflection of the concrete pillars. A figure, tall, thin, wearing a hood, standing still, staring at me, but no one else was around. Would you lock your doors or confront the figure? If this story already has your heart racing, and you love night shift horror and urban legends brought to life, subscribe to Halfway Dark. The next story could be closer than you think. I got out of the car, trying to shake it off. As I walked toward the elevator, I heard footsteps echoing behind me. Quick, light, but when I turned, nothing. The elevator doors opened. Inside, I saw shadows moving, but not like people. They twisted unnaturally along the walls. I stepped in. The doors closed. The display panel showed level 7. I hadn't pressed any buttons. Would you stay in the elevator or force the doors open? The elevator stopped. Level 7. Empty, except for cars I didn't recognize. I passed a black sedan. In the driver's seat, a face staring at me. Pale, expressionless. I blinked. Gone. The lights flickered. Every car seemed to shift positions, subtly moving closer. The air smelled like metal and decay. Would you run toward the stairs or investigate the cars? I found a small security office tucked in the corner. Inside sat a man behind a monitor, typing silently. I approached. No face, blank, smooth, like a mannequin. He turned slowly toward me. You shouldn't be here. The voice came from nowhere. Deep, distorted. The monitors flickered, showing every level. Every car and every shadow slowly inching closer. I realized with terror that the garage was alive. Watching. Waiting. Would you confront the attendant or try to escape back to your car? I ran. Every stairwell led to the same spot level 7. Every turn brought me closer to the security office. Then I saw it. My car, but it wasn't mine. The license plate read, "You," in bold letters. The figure from the first floor appeared behind me. Hooded, tall, smiling under a shadow. I jumped in the car, turned the key, and the engine roared to life, but the garage stretched endlessly in every direction. I screamed, but no sound came out. Then the headlights caught a sign. last level forever. And I realized I had been inside the garage all night, and yet I hadn't moved a single foot. Would you ever park here again, knowing the garage might trap you forever? You've just survived another night shift horror story from halfway dark home of true Reddit horror, urban legends, and night shift terror. If your skin is crawling, hit subscribe now. Join our cult of night shift horror fans, because the night never ends, and neither do our stories. The Night Clerk Who Never Left. A night shift horror story, halfway dark. Have you ever been the only person in a store at 3 in the morning and realized the person behind the counter wasn't supposed to be there? I found out the hard way, working a night shift at a convenience store that should have felt safe, but didn't. Before we start, if you love true Reddit horror stories, night shift encounters, and stories that leave you questioning reality, subscribe to Halfway Dark. You won't want to miss this one. I was restocking shelves. The fluorescent lights flickered occasionally normal for an old store. Then I heard it. The bell above the door chimed. A customer. Perfectly ordinary. Except the register was empty. I looked up. There was a man behind the counter, my coworker. But he had died 2 months ago. Would you approach him or pretend you didn't see anything? If you're already creeped out and love urban night shift horror and chilling true stories, subscribe to Halfway Dark. The night doesn't end here. I blinked. The man was gone. I shook it off. Maybe exhaustion. Then the store shifted. Aisles seemed longer, darker. Products I'd never stocked, strange jars. Bottles with illegible labels lined the shelves. The CCTV monitors flickered, showing static, then my own face behind the counter. Would you try to leave or investigate what the cameras are showing? I heard footsteps echoing in the empty store. I turned. People hundreds lined the aisles, motionless, faces pale, smiling, watching me. One stepped forward. He didn't speak, but I heard it in my head. You belong behind the counter now. The lights flickered again. When they came back, all the customers were gone. But the store smelled of something metallic, blood. Would you run to the door or wait to see if anyone comes back? I finally reached the front door. Locked. Then I heard a voice, soft but unmistakable. You can't leave. I looked up. The dead clerk stood behind me, smiling, his eyes empty. I tried to move. Couldn't. My legs felt glued to the tile floor. He raised a hand. The lights dimmed. Shadows stretched across the store, coiling around me. I screamed, but no sound came out. Would you confront the clerk or accept what's happening? Hours passed, or minutes. Time didn't make sense. The bell rang again. New customer. I turned. A figure, tall and black, faceless, holding a sign. Next shift? The clerk smiled wider. I realized with terror that I had become the clerk. The next night, someone else would see me behind the counter, smiling, watching, waiting, and I would whisper, "You belong behind the counter now." Would you work the night shift here, knowing what's waiting for you? You've just survived another night shift horror story from Halfway Dark, your home for Reddit-style horror, urban legends, and night shift terror. If your skin is crawling, hit subscribe and join the community. Because the night never ends, and neither do our stories.